In this video tutorial, tutorial 2.2, I'm going to show you some of the basic things that will make using your editor a lot easier. These grid lines that are visible on the page, you can turn them on or off with this button that's up here. A visitor to your website is only probably going to see what's inside of the grid lines. So I like to keep those on, and you'll notice this horizontal grid line is showing you what's part of the header of your website, which will appear on every page. So if you drag an object into the header, you can actually attach it to the header, which is this area above the line, and that means no matter what page you're on, that item will stay there. I'm going to undo that so that that doesn't stay. The undo buttons obviously are very helpful. That can really help you save time when you make a mistake, as well as the copy and paste shortcuts. And you can also turn on this snapping feature, which is located up here next to the grid line key. And when you have snapping enabled and the button is pressed, then as you're dragging things around your site, you can see that lines kind of appear on the page, and that shows you that you are aligning things together. So that can save you time in making sure that the parts of your website are actually lined up to one another. And if you really want to be particular, you can turn on these rulers and grid lines, which appear in measuring pixels across the page, and that can really help you line things up more precisely if you desire. I'm going to work on the home page for this tutorial just so I can give you a sense of some of these tools. The second button on your toolbar over here on the left is the design bar, and you can actually not only change the background of your website. I think I mentioned before that I didn't like the pink, so if I wanted to change that to a different color, I could pretty easily do that by choosing one of the selected backgrounds, or you can also upload and customize your own image. But aside from the background, you can also change the default colors and fonts associated with your editor. So if I go into the Colors tab, I can actually choose a color palette that will then automatically appear as my color palette options on other pages when I'm editing my site. So for example, if I choose this palette, you can see that it changes the colors of some of the items on my page, which I can change later. But this just kind of makes a kind of a default palette as a starting point for me to work with. So again, let's say, so I choose one or I customize my own by coming in here. You can actually, if you're working with specific colors, you can enter a hex code if you find a website that helps you design a color palette and you want to transfer the hex code of particular colors to your palette. That will give you an even more specific set of colors to choose from. But I'm going to go with this palette that I've just selected, and that's just going to save time later so that when I'm changing the color of things, let's say I was going to change the color of my name here at the top, you can see when I click on the font color tool, automatically the palette that I had selected has been loaded into this color picker. So then I know I'm choosing from a consistent set of colors from here on out on my website. Similarly, in the design palette, you can do the same thing with your fonts. So if I want to change the default font associated with my website, I could choose a different style of font that I want to be sort of my automatic font option within my site. So I'm going to choose a style of font other than the one that was selected because maybe I feel like that one wasn't professional enough, and I want to choose something that has a different style. And once again, you can customize fonts that are for specific purposes. For example, headings versus the body text that would appear automatically inside a paragraph or automatically as a title. And those are things you can change later and personalize for individual elements of your site. But if you choose kind of a set that is the default, then it does save you time in the editing process. So those are the design tools. Just like you have custom and default designs with fonts and colors, you have the same thing for buttons and boxes. So anytime you're working with a button or box and you click on it to select it, you have the option of working or affecting its style. And by clicking on the change style option of a button, box, photograph, or any other kind of element, you can see that there are already some default styles that are loaded into my editor. So I can choose from one of these particular styles that I've already created, for example, or that is already preloaded, or I can change what the default button style is by coming in to edit the style. So this way, again, in the future, next time I add a button, automatically it will be added with particular colors that I specify, and that'll just save me time, so I don't have to customize every single time I add a menu. Now, I can personalize the button, meaning that I'm not going to save it as one of my automated styles. I'm making it kind of an exception to the rule. But if I do that in that case, then in the future when I make new buttons that are following these style options and I decide to change these style options, a personalized button would not be affected because I've kind of removed it from the set of default options. So those are things you can do to just save yourself time. The same thing works for galleries and slideshows. You can change the style of the way images appear so that you have a different sort of visual effect in the way things come up. And once you've saved that as a default or as a particular style, then in the future, you know that all of your slideshows are going to be consistent on all of your pages. All of your buttons are going to be consistent on all of your pages. On the subject of images, if I want to organize the images in, let's say, a gallery or add a new image to my website, I am brought into this image library that is specific to my Wix account. So once I've uploaded an image to my Wix account, let's say I'm going to choose a particular picture that I want to put on my website. Once I have uploaded that picture into Wix, it will always be here on my account. And actually in the future, I can click on this settings button and I can download it from here, kind of like I would my SkyDrive or my private locker on Pilot. You can create folders to help organize your media. So for example, if I wanted to create a folder of photos that are particular to DRSS as opposed to a particular school year or a particular project, I can make a folder that will just keep those pictures, and you can very easily click and drag and organize things into folders to save you time later, or rename pictures to save yourself time when you're trying to look through your library and choosing the pictures that you want to include. All of these options to have the title of a picture or the description of a picture appear are optional, and I can turn these off at any time. Those are all style features, and I would just do that by coming into the slideshows settings, and I could actually change the way that images appear and whether or not text appears or what happens when you click on the gallery. That would all be something that I could customize within my site. If I want to move things around on my site, if I have an item selected, for example, this slideshow, if I want to make it a little smaller so it's not taking up so much space, I can either resize something just by clicking in its corners or ends just the way you would, say, in PowerPoint or any other kind of program, or you'll see an option sometimes to use what they call a stretch handle, and the stretch handle resizes the object but also drags everything with it. So by clicking and dragging on the stretch handle, I'm actually able to resize the rest of the page as it is impacted by the object, and that again just saves me time so that I'm not in a position of moving the picture and then having to move all the objects associated with it. So that's something that will save you time. Earlier, I was talking about adding pictures, and you can add a single picture or gallery or text box. Any kind of feature you're going to add to your site is over here in this Add menu bar. So if I'm going to add an image, for example, it's going to put in a default image. If I decide I don't want this slideshow, I could just click on it and delete it. And I instead could have this image here. If I come in to change the image and switch that to this Dayton Regional STEM School picture, you can see that the image itself is actually kind of cropping to fit inside this box. And that's something I can turn on or off by coming into the image settings and deciding if I want that image to crop inside the frame or center or stretch or fit the frame. And those are options that'll help you control the picture. Now that I'm on fit, for example, it's going to automatically keep the proportions of the picture the same as the box is moving around. If I wanted to have a string of these pictures repeating and just click on it and then copy paste by using the Control C, Control V on my keyboard, I could make multiples of something and make sure that they're aligned by shift clicking on multiples and coming into the settings to actually align them. So I can align them in the center, and I can also distribute them horizontally or match the size of them so that I'm really positive that they're a perfect match. And these are just tools that will save you time, again, so that you're not wasting your time doing this little nitpicking stuff. You can focus on the content of your website as well and make your site look really professional.